Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day or night you are joining us for coffee today, or whatever is in your cup. My name is Lori Krajewski, and this is Coffee with Duquesne this morning.
Hi, everybody.
Um, Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I love the bag of coffee there.
Yes, yeah,
Uh,
at this point in time, I actually just travel with a bag of coffee in my car so that if anyone ever asks, like, what do you do? Or like, hey, I saw on Instagram you're doing that coffee thing, I can just go run and throw one at them and tell them to try it. So this is my new traveling buddy right here.
I love that. I got to get more prepared.
Well, yeah. Well, and you know who I learned it from was Clayton, because Clayton travels around with zero in his pockets at all times. So this is
Okay.
me stealing a little hack from him because he
All
always
right.
has in his pockets.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna have to take a page from both of your books. I gotta start coming equipped with all my stuff.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. Just carry a bag around and have the goodies all saved in there.
I really should. I really should. So before we dive into the coffee, let's introduce you. I'm just going to give a really brief introduction. I'm just going to let you take it from there.
Yeah, sounds perfect.
So what you're telling me is that you graduated from college from the University of Louisville. Did I say Louisville right?
Yeah, we act like we have mashed potatoes in our mouth and we say Louisville, but you're
Okay.
technically saying it right. Yes.
My northern Louisville isn't as mashed potato.
Yeah.
and
It was.
and University of Tennessee, Knoxville, with a psychology major and business plus history minor. That's a busy guy.
Yeah.
While at the University of Tennessee, you captained your rugby team and won multiple awards, such as Student Athlete of the Year, Volunteer of the Year, and Sexton Scholarship for Leadership. You are notable for having over 5 years of experience working for a foundation in a leadership role, gaining experience in fundraiser planning, board of director meetings, and assigning jobs to employers. I really should have my readers for this. You have also taught middle school social studies for 3 years in a high need school in Kentucky. High need, special need, is that what you mean?
Well, so it was an inner city school, and we're labeled a AIS school, which means your students are high needs based off their test scores or
Okay.
their income level. I was on the special needs team though as well, so I kind of had both sides of it, where it was lower test scores, but also we had some of the developmental or kind of mental disabilities with some of our students we worked with.
So, and it sounds like you worked on literacy and racial equality.
Yes, so
Yes,
that
and that was all kind of wrapped up in and new teacher of the year. That's
yeah.
quite an accomplishment. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was
Pretty
an
cool.
interesting time to, it was all during COVID too that I taught. So it was an interesting time to be a teacher.
Wow. Yeah, I can only imagine. And now you are working for DRC Ventures. You're heading the finance department and the HR department, and you're assisting the leadership team with running the office and representing the company at various functions. That's actually where you and I met, right? Is that what you mean with the vendor events and other functions
Yeah, so
throughout the
doing exactly, yeah, at the we did the Austin one where we first met. Yeah,
That was a big one.
it was. I That was my first one too, and it actually was
You
impacted
started
this.
with a bang.
Well, yeah, it was so busy and it was such a big event that it was great because now we've gone to a couple other ones that are that big, but a lot of them are a little smaller. So now the smaller ones are a piece of cake because that one was just
Right.
so crowded with so many different, vendors and people there. So it
And
was a
it was
good,
long.
yeah, yeah, it
I mean,
was. It
I
was,
I, I personally have never done a 13-hour vendor event. I mean,
no,
that was long.
no, it
Yeah,
was.
it was a lot. And you are the president for Rahm Roast, and you're responsible for strategic planning as the company grows. So I mean, you've had a really full plate so far.
Yeah, I have. It's been, and look, going from being a teacher, which I learned a lot of good skills being a teacher, but going from being a teacher to attacking the business world and kind of being put into it with all the stuff that Root is and how big Root is. And then once DRC Ventures came in and kind of started managing a lot of Root, um, doing business in school and learning it in college is not at all similar to doing it in the real world. So I had to learn on the run and learn very quickly because Root did not give me time to kind of learn my way in, but it was immediate growth and new things and needing people to fill in holes. So it was an exciting, long onboarding into it, but it's been great.
And, with a new company, Root is only what, 3.5 years
Yeah,
old at this point with a
yeah,
new company. And hey, sorry. With
you're
a
fine.
new company, it's really like you hit the ground running, you fill in the holes, you do what you got to do.
Yeah. Well, and it's so true because, and so many people forget Root is such a new company because with how many people are involved and, we go to events and people know our names. You'll run into a handful every event. They're like, oh, I've heard of you from friends or whatever. So people don't realize that we're 3 years in. So they assume we have all these things together. But when I started, like, we didn't have any real payroll process or like for payroll for employees. We didn't have any programs to do it, which was one of my first tasks I got thrown onto because we just didn't have that many employees. The
Yeah.
office was 6 people, and we've doubled in size. We're almost 15 headquarter employees, but even that's not that big. I mean, that's
No.
pretty. And we have all
Considering
these.
it's a global company, that is a tiny
Exactly.
home office.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so you put in, I mean, we have 15 HQ employees and then probably another 10 contractors around the world that help us in different areas, which is 25 people who are working in around 80 countries. And it's a lot of work, but that's how Root is set up is really great because Clayton has these, has our ambassadors who are so willing to help us, who really take the work off of our plate sometimes when we need help, or like when we go to events and you helped us with that event because we didn't have 8 employees to work the booth. We had to get help from the community, which you filled in and Shauna and Jill filled in, and we got a lot of help that way. But we're just now getting to a place where we actually have a big enough team to do all that, which means we can do even more work, which is exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I'm happy to do it because it gives me an opportunity to talk to people who actually want to hear what I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's those are the type of areas where people are interested in hearing, like asking questions and being, what can we do differently? Or, oh, a new coffee, like, why would you need a new coffee? Or, oh, why are you selling these little golden pills called Zero In? Like, what do you mean? Like, it's an all natural Adderall. They ask all these questions and they're interested, and it's a cool discussion. And even if they leave and nothing comes of it, they're actually interested to hear what you're saying, which
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's rewind just a little bit, and we're going to go back to kind of back to the beginning, way back in the beginning, before you even had to hit the ground running with Root. And if you're not on board, you sink or swim, right? Is that the expression?
Exactly.
Sink or swim. Yeah. So it wasn't always clear if you were going to be okay. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Dr. Dr. Rahm, however you call her, or Mom is what I call her. It's very hard in the office to like stick with names. Especially when new employees come and they're like, who did you just call Mom? And I'm like, just
sorry.
but yeah, exactly. But I was born and she was sick when I was born. And she's kind of talked about this. I don't know if she's ever said it was me, but she had cancer around that time. And anyone who knows Dr. Rahm knows that her health journey is why she does what she does now. So many things she's overcome, from cancer to Lyme disease, and that led her to want to figure out new ways to overcome issues or to have a healthier body, even when you're dealing with these environmental things or these genetic things that already were affecting her. But I was born and they weren't sure how I would be born, basically. I don't know the best way to say it, but they weren't sure if any physical or mental or social issues or disabilities would arise from it. So growing up, I was very overwatched from doctors and even teachers just from that risk. And honestly, they thought something would pop up. When it didn't really pop up when I was born, they were like, well, maybe it'll develop once he's in school. So you go through the typical issue and you see it all the time now, but they wanted to put me on Adderall because they said I had ADHD, or they wanted me to be in all these certain classes or be held back a year. And my mom would not do it. She, was very like, whatever. To be fair, I was not great as an elementary school kid in school. I was a typical boy, but I was very hyper. So I see
Okay.
where there were some issues, but she was very intentional about, we will work on this. He's just a, 5, 6-year-old boy. He's just hyper. He wants to do stuff. So growing up, I felt like there was a, micro or magnifying glass, that's the word I'm looking for, on me, always watching to make sure nothing popped up. And nothing did. And again, there's the whole discussion about like, are people, do these issues pop up because they're born with it, or is it because you kind of hold kids to these expectations and then they fulfill them? So if you hold a kid to an expectation of, you're not going to be good in school, well, maybe he ends up not being good in school. But I had, and we spoke about this a little bit, Mrs. Davis was my second grade teacher, and she was very similar to my mom, where she was like, you are going to take this test just like everybody else. You're going to get an A. I don't care if you don't like to read. You're going to read this book. And then she would go find a book that I was interested in. So she found, the Harry Potter series, or she found that different books that I could try. And when your mom tells you you're great at something, all moms say that. But when you have a teacher that tells you that and she holds you to the same standards, that was kind of the, oh, well, I can get A's, or I can finish as many books. And now I am an avid reader. I, as you kind of put in the bio, obviously my grades are fine. That was one of the big worries, but I ended up graduating as the athletic scholar of the year for the rugby team when I graduated. I don't think I've never had a semester under a 3.5 GPA from high school to college to my master's program. So growing up, they thought I would not be able to do all these things in school, or I wouldn't be able to play sports. That was another big worry. I played college rugby and continued to play rugby afterwards. So that obviously was not an issue. But it's been an interesting life journey, going from all these people thinking something would be wrong and they didn't know what. That was all. They always told my mom, like, well, we're not sure what's going to happen, but like, we just want to keep eyes on him. But then, you just have some people in your life that kind of give you that inspiration or believe in you outside your parents, because again, parents always do it. My mom always has, but it took kind of a couple other people to show me that too. And then it just is kind of amazing what you can do with your life once you have that belief in you, which is such a, you hear that story all the time, but it really is true. It is true for kids that having someone give you that belief is so important.
I couldn't agree more. And when we don't have that, and in reverse, when we have the flip side,
Yeah.
it can go sideways really quickly.
Yeah. So, and that's why I became a teacher. And it's actually two of the things. You heard the work in the foundation was in my bio. I worked for the Rahm Foundation and was on the junior board. The Rahm Foundation was a foundation my mom started that had mentors that would be matched with mentees, and they would kind of help them with whatever field they were interested in. So I loved doing that in high school and in college, because I got to be in that environment of having a mentor, or then as a college student being able to mentee high schoolers. And I saw how important that was. And then from that, I wanted be a teacher. So I taught for 3 years, and I loved it. I loved working with the students and getting to be just be there for the students. And it was not easy. I had days where I was not a great teacher, and I would tell the students the next day, hey, I did not do great yesterday. I'm sorry. But overall, just being able to work with students was so amazing. There were other issues with teaching. That is why I left, with just kind of some of the how teaching is in the US right now. But as far as working with students, and again, my students were what a lot of people would say were not an easy group to teach, but I would say the reverse. I would say it was so much easier to teach in the place I taught, because all the students really needed was somebody who, once they knew that you believed in them, I mean, my students would do anything for me.
Yeah.
And I taught so much better there because I was able to form those relationships with the students and just, be the somebody that said like, hey, yeah, what you just did was bad, but like, I know you can do good. I know you can get an A on that test. I know you can go a month without getting suspended or detention. And it is unbelievable how much students will live up to that and
Mm-hmm.
work up to what you tell them they can do. So it was a
And
great
I think it's kind of an extension of what parents essentially want to do for their kids is
yeah,
kids really want to please.
yeah,
You
they
know,
do.
kids are kind of like
They do.
puppies. We
Yeah,
don't really grow out of that. We want to please. We want to
yeah,
do well. And when somebody cultivates that ability to do well, it can really change lives. It's a shame that, the institution or maybe the administration is frustrating. I think a lot of teachers are leaving because it's not about the kids, right? It's more about
yeah,
the institution of education itself, or possibly just the administration in some districts that teachers just don't feel supported. Or,
yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
No, it's tough too, because I had one of the best principals. He spent my first year, even though I won the new teacher of the year, my first year was rough. But I mean, I grew a lot, and he was in my class whenever I needed help, and he was a great principal. But even in that, he could only do so much to fix.
yep.
I mean, I had 32 students in my classroom with one, and like I had said, some of them were special ed, and there was one of me, and I had 8 students who had learning disabilities. And the truth is, you just can't.
It's
I mean, there's
difficult,
no
right?
way to, yeah. And then there's test scores that they want you to hit, and that's not my principal's fault. He is forced to do that, and it kind of
Yeah.
goes back to the institution. And he made it as painless and helped as much as possible. I mean, he would fill in for testing for teachers if needed, but it's tough when I had so many great teachers I worked with and such a great principal, and it still was hard. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it's like if you have teachers at your school who aren't very good or don't buy in, and then a principal that maybe doesn't support you, which I know a lot of
Mhm.
teachers deal with that.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine. I mean, I applaud teachers who care, teachers who are bought in fully and stay in that situation, because they are, I mean, it's very impressive.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. So you eventually made the decision to move forward from teaching. Was that mostly because you wanted to start working with Root, or
No,
were you
it
just
was
not really sure where to go, what to do?
I was I was on the way to being a personal trainer. After college and playing sports, fitness
Okay.
was kind of I wanted to do something with fitness. So I had an internship and a job lined up at a gym, and then Rahm roast actually got brought to the table at Root, and they started producing that. And I got a call from Clayton and Ted. Clayton told me that Rahm roast was being launched, that they would like to bring me on and have me be the coffee guru. And then Ted did my interview, because I wanted to
Okay.
be sure that I didn't have my mom or my stepdad do my interview. I'm a big like right and wrong person. So they said that they would hire me right away, and I said no, I would like to do an interview. And to be fair, I don't think Ted would say no to Ted couldn't really say no, but I did the whole interview process, and did the whole process and, you know, gave a resume and talked to them for about an hour. And yeah, so they basically convinced me. I love coffee, which is why I love that you do this. But some of my best relationships in college and me finding faith actually and becoming a Christian happened over a cup of coffee in college. Um, I know. So I love this. And so my life goal has to be to create a place or an environment or community that has the same feel of a coffee shop or having coffee with friends. Uh,
Yes.
because I think some of the best conversations, some of the best community happens in those places over a cup of coffee or just in having that, not let's go out to a party. Let's no,
Yes.
like not let's go golf
Yes.
and be distracted, but let's
Yes.
go to this place. We're not distracted by food. We might have a
Yes.
snack and a drink, tea, coffee, water, and we have to
Yes.
talk. And
Yes.
I love it. So doing Rahm roast and being able to Clayton really sold me on, hey, you know, come join Root. You can create a community like that in Root, and then you can also focus on Rahm roast and create a coffee brand that, and my mom and Clayton and Ted have done so much work. Marty's over our marketing and he's done a lot of marketing for it, but it's been great to work and have this type of community be a focus and Root, which it already kind of was, but I can
Yeah.
build on it with coffee. And then also make, you know, Rahm roast a coffee that is healthier for you,
Yes.
but you can give this gift to people to go build relationships and make friends or learn something new or debate with a friend and maybe you disagree at the end, but you got to have a good conversation. So um, that's what convinced me was Clayton. Clayton's a great salesman. I mean, he is great at pitching stuff, but he pitched to me this whole vision of bringing that to Root and to Rahm roast. And so that's how they drew me in. And I'm so glad because I've learned so much here, just from not even the coffee, but just about how to do business. And I've met so many great people. I mean, I've got to meet so many office workers, but also vendors at events and ambassadors, um, like you. And, you know, when we went to Cyprus, I met a lot of the Germany team and I got to meet all these ambassadors who are from different parts of the world. And I get to learn about different cultures and it just is a great experience.
Well, and I didn't know. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more that the best way to really connect with someone is exactly like you said. Let's just sit down with a cup of coffee and see where it goes.
Yeah.
And I've noticed usually right around that 1 hour mark, if people stick with you, right around that hour mark, it really starts to get really personal
Yeah.
and really at the core of the
Yeah.
core of the juice of life. And
Yeah.
when people allow themselves to be vulnerable and to really open up, and I don't know if it's just some people can do that and some people can't, but my whole life I've had people, total strangers will walk up to me and they'll tell me their life story, and
Yeah.
then they'll look at me really weird and be like, I don't know why I just told you all of that.
Yeah. I don't tell people that. Like, yeah.
Yes. Yes. It always, this has happened my whole life. And I thought, wow, I'm really honored. You
Yeah.
know, you literally just shared your heart with me. And I really honor that. It, it's
Yeah.
it's a gift, really,
Yeah.
to be able to provide a space where people feel safe enough to do that.
Yeah.
And I love that, to really truly connect with someone.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I don't necessarily have that. My mom is that way. People will tell her anything, which I'm sure you can see. But watching it, it's interesting because it's a gift for that other person to be able to have
Exactly.
that place to share. And it's also a gift for the person that, and sometimes it can be hard because sometimes there's a lot, and I'm sure you've
Yep.
experienced this, but a lot of emotional
Yep.
baggage that comes from that.
Yep.
But it's also a gift because you get to experience so many different forms of people and what they go through and have a better understanding of the world because you
Yeah.
understand that everyone has their things and
Yeah.
everyone is going through life. And I
Yeah.
think especially in our society now, we forget that. We think
Yeah.
it's only myself, but through your experiences, I'm sure you get to be that help for people, but also see like, wow, people have so much different stuff going on. And that it
But
just is
simultaneously, when it's all boiled down into the pot, we're not that different.
no,
We're,
it,
the shades of what we've been through might be a little unique to our personal experience, but
it affects us similar. It's yeah,
and I think that that's the importance of sharing, is that people feel so alone, and
yeah,
they feel like this is only happening to them, and they isolate even more because they don't think that anybody else is struggling with the things that they're struggling with, and it's so not true.
yeah.
We all have stuff, and we all have baggage. I don't want to call it baggage, but
But it is Clayton uses a phrase where he talks about like everybody has their bag or their toolbox or whatever, that as life goes on, stuff gets thrown in it and it kind of affects your journey. But the truth
yeah,
is everyone has that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it is, when you use the word baggage, I know people think it's like it's almost a negative, like
yeah,
baggage is holding you back. And having that bag can make things more difficult, but it also makes you who you are, and it can lead to so many great things. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean it's such a
And
true thing. Get it?
there's cliches for a reason. That which
That's
does not
true
kill you
too.
makes you stronger.
Yeah,
And I was talking to Clayton, I don't know, 2 weeks ago now, and he was talking about how steel is forged,
yeah,
and hammering steel makes it stronger.
yeah. You heat
It
it, you hammer it, and you repeat and repeat and repeat, and you get thrown in the fire, and then you're gonna get hit some again, and you come out a little stronger. Yeah, and it's so true.
it is so true. While you're in it, while you're getting hammered, and while you're in the fire, you can't see anything but getting hammered and being in the fire. But when you get through that and you look back and you realize it really wasn't as bad as it was in that moment, and
Yeah,
you're so much stronger because of it, it's
yeah,
it's it's inspiring in a way. And I think that's one of the reasons why everybody loves your mom so much, is that
yeah.
she's been in the fire and she's been hammered. She's
Yeah.
so much stronger for it.
She is, and I do think it's what you've said and is so true about the steel, and it's interesting because if you think of that analogy through the whole way, there's always someone holding the steel. They're
Yeah.
never fully left alone, and that's kind of what you're talking about, is people feel
Oh,
so alone. But
yeah.
if you're going at it alone and you really aren't reaching out to anybody, then it's not gonna work. You have to have something to lean on to help you. And when you get out, they're there to hold you, to walk with you after that. They're the hand that's holding that steel bar. They're the clamp, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
I think people forget that sometimes, is that yes,
Yeah.
we go through the fire, but if you're going through the fire, there's people around to help. And I will say, going back to coffee shops and coffee, anybody that really thinks they are alone and doesn't have anyone to reach out to, if you go to a coffee shop every day for a week,
Yep.
you will talk with somebody,
Yes.
a barista or another customer that sees you.
Yes.
Somebody will come over and start up a conversation. And just like you said, you'll get an
Yep.
hour in, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this person might be my new best friend.
Yes.
This is weird,
I,
but it
I
is,
could not agree more. I can't believe we have this in common. This is so awesome.
yeah.
And I agree. It's really about staying connected in a world that is grown really disconnected in
Oh
a
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And here we are taking advantage of technology to bridge the gap between Wisconsin and Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and it can be done, and it can be really, really beautiful if you have the courage to just reach out and say, I really need to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, and again, that's where technology is good. Like you're saying, is that I mean, I have social media, I have Instagram, that I see friends go through something, whether it's a loss or they didn't get a job. Now, the difference is I don't just see that and like a picture. The next step is calling them,
Yeah.
writing them a letter and being like, hey, I'm so sorry. Do you want to talk? And that's
Yeah.
where we can use this, technology to be better friends in some instances. It just,
Yeah.
we don't usually take it that far.
Yeah.
We leave a heart on something, or we leave
Yeah.
a hug emoji, but
Yeah.
that's not real human connection. That's not an
It's
actual
not.
hug.
It's
And
not.
that's where, getting on and actually doing a talk on a podcast, that's now you're having some real conversation. But if we had
Yeah.
just emailed all these questions, well, that's not the same.
No.
We would have realized all these, similar things about coffee shops or any of that. And that's where you just have to take that a little extra step and, make it a little more personable.
I agree. And honestly, that's exactly why I started this podcast. The world really doesn't need another podcast, but what we
Yeah.
do need is coffee and connection. I don't know about you,
Mhm.
but I need coffee. I
Well,
I'm
I'm,
not saying
I'm,
I'm addicted, but I need that ritual of
yeah,
connecting. And a lot of times, to be honest, I've never told anybody this, but my coffee time is my God time. And
yeah,
it's become my ritual of just waking up and saying thank you for another
yeah,
day.
yeah. And it is there's something to be said about the ability to wake up and make yourself a cup of coffee and have that 2 to 5 minutes where you're just making that cup of coffee. There's something to be thankful for that. And it's such
Yeah,
a small thing. It is such a
yeah,
small, but
yeah,
it's a blessing. And or whatever, whatever you believe. I mean, I think it's a blessing. I think very similar. That's my like, I a lot of times will say a short prayer when I am
yes,
like sitting there, just as like a thank you for this day. But
yep.
no matter what, it is a blessing just to be able to do that and take that time and enjoy. It doesn't have to be coffee. Some people do it with tea. Everybody has
I
their
don't
thing.
care if
But
it's hot water and lemon, you know,
yeah,
but for
yeah,
me, it is coffee. And I just have to tell you, yesterday, I started brewing the coffee and I looked outside and I realized the swans came back.
yeah,
There were a dozen swans right out in front of our property, and
yeah,
I'm speechless at that
yeah,
point, and all I can really do is just say thank you.
yeah,
And I go into my morning prayer and my thing, and it's just really, for me, it is the best way to start the day, with remembering that we are supported.
yeah,
Again, I'm not asking anybody to be Christian. I'm not asking anybody to be religious, but if there is some kind of connection missing,
yeah,
perhaps maybe you want to open that door and consider that the Holy Spirit really is always there with you all the time and can really change your life.
yeah. And
So
I mean,
anyway, I'm curious, as a kid, did you have health issues at all? Did you struggle with any health issues? Or was it more that your mom was so sick they thought you might get sick?
it was more that she was so sick that they, and it wasn't even that they thought I might get sick. They were like, he has to get sick.
Oh,
There's
okay.
there's no way that he will be born. And I don't know what the
Normal.
percentage is, but one of those very scary percentages that if
Yeah.
I knew, people would be like, wow, that's amazing. But she just didn't believe that and didn't think it. And um, I forget the word for it. It's whenever you cry a lot as a baby. There's a colic. Is
Colic?
that what I was called? I cried a lot as a baby, but otherwise, I'm one of the healthiest people in my friend group and in my family. Which again,
Well,
it would have said there's no way. Like something has to pop up. He has to have a learning disability, or for a long time they thought I wouldn't be able to like run and play sports, so they recommended I didn't play sports because my body wouldn't keep up with it
wow.
physically. So they basically just kept when I was born and didn't have autism or Down syndrome, they were like, well, let's go on to the next thing. Like he has to have a learning
Wow.
disability. And when I didn't
Wow.
have a learning disability, they were like, well, maybe it's something physical and like we need to watch this. But I'm so blessed, and I honestly don't think I've ever stopped and thought about that. I am very blessed that nothing was wrong. I think I've kind of just
Yeah.
accepted it and moved on. But I've had no major health scares. I've had injuries playing rugby, but that
Sure,
happens to somebody that knows
sure.
rugby. But I haven't had anything major happen, and I am very blessed, and I am that's not common. I mean, I probably have had a healthier life than people that don't have any concerns when they're
Yeah,
born.
yeah.
Um, and it's been,
And do you think that was because of your mom or just because, you defied I mean, I guess one could say you defied the odds just like your mom did, or maybe they were looking for problems where there just weren't any, or
I
maybe a
think
little
they
bit
were
of
just,
both.
I think there's some of both. And we kind of mentioned this a little earlier. I think I was a little slower learning at first.
Okay.
Now a lot of boys are just very hyper as first, second graders. And as a teacher, I would say that is just because boys and girls develop at a different speed, and boys sometimes are just a little hyper. Like it's hard to sit in a desk for
Yeah.
60 minutes. But
Yeah.
um, so I would say, if my mom had listened to them and
Yeah.
acted as if there was something wrong, I very well could, have not had anything majorly wrong, but graduated with a, you know, 2.0 GPA, which is not bad. But when I have what I had, that wouldn't be me living up to my full potential. So I think it's a combination of they were looking for things that weren't there because it,
Yeah.
it just makes sense to them. And,
Yeah.
sometimes the scientists and doctors, they're all about percentages and
Yeah.
probability. And when
Yeah.
it doesn't fit into that, they can't comprehend it. And I
Yeah.
think the second part is my mom didn't allow that to be the story. And then through that, she passed that on to me, that belief of, and again, with the help of like Mrs. Davis and these other people. But then, I mean, I had the belief once I was in high school of like, I can get an A or B in any class. I can play any sport I want just because
Yeah.
that's how I was raised, and that's how the, mentors in my life, that's how they said it. I wasn't getting a 4.0 all the time, or I wasn't the best player on a team, but I could do all of it. I might not be the best, but I never grew up with the thought of like, oh, I couldn't do something. Um, Not that I was growing up disillusioned thinking that I had to be the best at anything, but it very much, my mom was like, if you want to go run track, go run track. So I ran
Yeah.
varsity track my freshman year. I was not the best. I would have never been the best, but I did it.
Yeah.
I played a year of football. I joined um the comedy club, well, forensics, and it was like an improv club, and I did that for a year. And was I the best? But no, like I made the team and did it. So it was just one of those things where she just kind of had the expectation of like, if you want to go try it, you can do it. You just need to work hard. And I just kind of carried that on with me.
And I love that it's more solution focused and more
Yeah.
possibility focused than problem focused. And you can't, it's, I, one day I would love to just sit down and talk with her about what goes on in the mind and in the programming and how we decide that we're not going to accept this diagnosis. And it
Yeah.
actually comes to fruition, in a way, she healed herself with her mind, not just
Yeah.
with the nutrition and not just with prayer, but I think our minds are so much more powerful than we give it credit for. And it
Yeah.
sounds like you were pretty much raised with, yes, you can. No,
Yeah.
you can do this. Go ahead and do it.
Yeah. And it's a
Try it.
very, in school when we were learning about this, and I would talk with my mom about it a lot since she was a psychologist as well. But
Yeah.
you get all these cases of people who do have these diagnoses of autism or Down syndrome, but you see different cases where, and my cousin works with clinics that are a company that works with people that have Down syndrome or other kind of disabilities or learning curves, and she works with them and helps them find jobs.
Yeah.
And that's what her process is she first starts with them, kind of gets them a base layer, and then by the end of the program they have a job. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that would say, and there's different levels and there's different
Sure.
scenarios,
Sure.
so everyone has a
Yeah.
different one, but there's usually something that people say, no, that person's not able to do that. And maybe they won't, but you also never gave them the chance.
Yeah.
So maybe you have an autistic child who the chances are they won't be able to speak. And
Yeah.
maybe they never will, but maybe if you tried, they would be able to say basic words.
Yeah.
Not be able to fully do everything, but it is that mentality of, well, let's try it and see. And who knows what will happen. And
Yeah.
I think that attitude isn't taken enough. I mean, that's kind of her approach to health and all the products she makes too, is that,
Hmm.
hey, this could help and it won't
Yeah.
fix everybody, but like try this and see where it leaves you because this is something you've never done.
Hmm.
And look, maybe somebody, I'm going to bring this to coffee because I'm the coffee nerd, but maybe someone can never drink coffee because it hurts their stomach, because that is a thing. Sometimes the acidity hurts their stomach, but maybe you should try a healthier coffee before you say that. And if you still can't do it afterwards, great, but maybe you can. And then we have a new situation. And there's just, that's
Anyway.
all her products are that way.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll never be able to be as healthy as your next door neighbor, but maybe your body's just very toxic. Have you tried
I
detoxifying
know.
it? Have you
I
tried
know.
cleaning it?
Yeah.
And if you do that and then you take a step forward, that is amazing. If you try it and nothing happens, well, you tried.
Yeah.
I would say percentage wise, most people see a step forward,
Yeah.
but people just need to be real willing to not say, like you're saying, say no to something, but be like, try.
Yeah.
You can try it. You can always try anything.
And if I didn't keep trying, I wouldn't be here. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you don't know really anything about my history, but it was a very, very long, confusing, lonely road to root.
Okay.
Obviously, everything that I did kept me alive.
Yeah.
It kept me off of medication. It kept me out of doctor's offices, but it
Yeah.
just wasn't quite getting me where
Yeah.
I wanted to be. And thankfully, Jill and Shanna met Clayton, and the rest is history. And I've finally been able to turn things around like I needed to. But I also found out that I have a gene mutation that
Yeah.
just adds a layer of complication. And I just don't detox well naturally. So having a formula that helps my body do that has made all the difference.
Yeah.
But had I not, and I'll be honest with you, I did not want to try one more thing. I did
Yeah.
not want to try one more detox binder. I did not want to try one more formula. I didn't want to throw more money out the window on one more thing. And Jill said, what if it works?
Yeah. It's
And
so
I
true.
just went, you're right. What if it works?
Yeah.
I will give it a try. And I'm not kidding. I told Clayton this too the other day. One drop, and I was like, whoa, what was that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I assumed I imagined it. I'm very sensitive to energy, but I was like, oh, you're imagining things. The
Yeah.
next
It's like
day,
placebo. Yeah.
same thing happened. I was like, okay, I don't think I imagined that. Next day, same thing happened. And I was like, there is something to this stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, by the third or fourth day, lifelong anxiety was gone,
Yeah.
gone. So I didn't see the changes that I wanted to see
Yeah.
immediately. And, if I was one of those people that was like, well, I have to take this before I can recommend it, I would have waited 5 months
Yeah.
to share the formulas that I had been taking to see what it might do for me. And I
Yeah.
would have withheld healing from 170 people.
Yeah. Which,
So there's a real testament to keep trying, keep
yes,
going,
that's
see
what
what
I say.
works for you,
Yeah.
because what works for me might not work for you the exact same way. And what if it works?
Yeah.
And I
And
was
what,
one of those people that a lot of times when I would drink coffee, it was like my whole stomach was on fire. So I
yeah.
didn't drink coffee for a long time. And honestly, this is the only coffee that I can drink black.
Yeah.
It, it's
I,
amazing.
that's my girlfriend. She black coffee upsets her stomach. So she has to put so much creamer in it that honestly, I look at the coffee and I'm like, you're not even drinking coffee. That's me being a snob. So ignore that part of it. But
You're ruining the
I know,
coffee.
Clayton had her try French press black coffee the other day. And it honestly was kind of cold and it wasn't the ideal, like what you would want in your coffee, and she drank the whole cup. And I was like, what are you doing? I was like, you can't. And again, I shouldn't have said this. I was like, you can't do that. Like, you're gonna upset your stomach. You know you will. And it
Yeah.
was Rahm roast, and
Okay.
I should have been more optimistic about it. But I was
Yeah.
worried that she'd get sick because I know what
Yeah.
happened. And she was like, no, I feel fine. She was like, this is
Love it.
unbelievable. I I like this. And
Love it.
that was the now she still puts creamer in it and flavors it with a bunch of sugar because she likes it more that way, and that's her choice. But it's still, she can drink it black, and it's funny but exciting to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is one of the smoothest, and it's kind of weird to describe coffee. And I think I told you yesterday, I've never heard of a cup score. I didn't even know there was a
Yeah,
cup score for coffee. But to describe a coffee as smooth and crisp, I
yeah,
was like, what is this, wine tasting? But it is.
it
It's
is.
and usually, like in the past, when I would drink coffee, I would kind of have that funky coffee tongue and funky coffee breath, and I'd be like, I better not breathe on anybody, get, brush my teeth or get a breath mint or something.
Yeah,
There's none of that.
no,
There's no aftertaste. There's no weirdness. It doesn't make me funky headed. It's the bomb. Why? How?
I would say. And it's interesting because, like you said, coffee really is evolving into this almost wine type of world. It's the second,
Connoisseur?
yeah, I mean, it's the second most popular export and import item in the world behind oil and gasoline.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it is
I did not know that.
everywhere. Yeah, and it is, it's almost insane, but it's a combination of one, sourcing what you're getting from a
Yeah.
good place.
And where is
It's
it sourced?
so it's sourced from Guatemala. There's the
Yeah.
Huhu region, which is a very popular region now. I actually just found another coffee that I still drink other coffees. Rum roast is
Sure.
what I did at home, but I went to a coffee shop and the guy had an 86 cup score, and he was only half washed, which that brings up another issue we'll talk about later. But his beans were from the same area, and it was a
Okay.
good coffee. And he had told me how long he had tried to find a good region, and he ended up at this Guatemalan region. And the other coffees out there that have very low toxin scores, there's a number of them that are also from that same region. So the first part is
Interesting.
the region. It is a
Interesting.
very good region. Anyone that knows my mom knows that every product she makes sure it's sourced
Yeah.
from good
Yeah.
sources. That's her
Yeah.
first step, no matter what. The
Yeah.
second part is that it is washed an additional time.
Okay.
It basically has an extra cleaning based off one of the solutions my mom's created that is patent pending right now. So you get a full wash, which is you soak it in water, it rinses it off. It's supposed to kind of get it ready for the roasting process. And then there's an additional cleanse that goes with it where there's a diluted solution that is soaked on the beans, and it is what cleanses it of any toxins or mold, which
Okay.
a lot of times that is what is causing there is a side of acidity that causes issues in people's stomach, but a lot of
Mhm.
times it's different pesticides,
Yeah.
fungus, or mold
Herbicides. Yeah.
that is still left on the beans from either them not being washed properly or from them sitting in bags for months to travel
Yeah.
from Guatemala to wherever it's going, which all coffee is going to be that way because coffee can
Mhm.
only be grown in certain regions. And
Yeah.
if you leave it there long enough, then stuff's going to get on it. It does,
Yeah.
mold, toxins,
Yeah.
just bugs walking on it. Like something's going
Yeah.
to happen.
Exactly. Exactly. And does the solution act as a prohibitive at all? Like it would
So,
prohibit any mold growth anyway? And
so it preserves the bean, and anyone that gets Rahm roast, this has been a question I get it several times. So it does preserve the coffee bean better. Now, there's always, no matter what, going to be
yeah.
a side
Yeah.
of coffee of you're supposed to keep it in the airtight bags that you
Yeah.
have. And
Yep.
then once you open the bags, you're supposed to put it in basically a like glass airtight container.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is one of the things we actually didn't think through fully when we launched this, is that not everybody that's drinking Rahm roast is as aware of like coffee etiquette and protocol. So our next round of bags are going to be resealable, so you can keep it in the bag and not as fully, but still preserve some of that air that you need from it.
Yeah.
But it does act as it preserves the beans better. A lot of times you'll see coffee beans that have an extra kind of gleam on the beans,
Yep.
which means they are usually roasting it longer. They're getting a dark roast, and they're kind of burning the coffee beans to preserve it from burning any chance away from it having mold or anything on it. Which is
Interesting.
why sometimes you'll drink coffee that has a little like burnt taste that stays on your
Yep.
tongue.
Yep.
I won't say
I won't mention
specific.
any names, but it's a very
Yeah.
popular chain.
Yeah. That does that. And that is because one, they're burning their coffee basically. They're burning it,
Interesting.
they're roasting it, they're also burning it when they're brewing it, which is another whole side to it. But
I've never understood the attraction to that chain. I'm sorry, but I'm like, this is the worst coffee I've ever had.
mass quick coffee that is
Yeah. The
flavorful. Yeah,
McDonald's of coffee.
I know. But that is those are kind of the two
So,
things. Our third thing is we do have a good roaster.
okay.
Clayton and my mom went through multiple roasters before they picked one that they were like, yes, this still tastes how we want it to taste. Like this,
Okay.
you're using the solution and you're roasting in a way where we still have flavor, but it's not, we have that smoothness, we have that lower kind of taste on our tongue afterwards and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting enough, has been one of our bigger complaints over in Europe is that it's not bitter, because
Yeah.
they're so used to espresso, and
Yeah.
normal espresso is very bitter. And I don't know what to tell them
Yeah.
about that. It's
Well, I
hard
mean,
to,
espresso can be really thick, right?
yeah, it
And
can.
this is coffee. It's not espresso, and coffee
Yeah.
is thinner, and
Yeah.
it's just got a lighter a lighter drink. I don't know how to really explain
No,
it, but
that's a good way of putting it. So it has, I would say it's been a little bit of a bigger hit in the US and the US than it has kind of over there.
sure.
I think it's taking people some time to get used to that it isn't as bitter as, some of the coffees they're used to. But in the end, it is for your best. It is
Yeah,
for your health,
exactly.
for best
Exactly.
intention.
So
Um,
besides kind of stripping away some of the mold and the chemicals and the funk that beans can be exposed to, does the solution have health benefit? Like, are we getting a little bit of support?
so I would say more that it lets the health benefits of coffee flourish.
Okay. Okay.
So there are health benefits to coffee that a lot of
Sure.
times are not seen because you're having all these negative side effects.
Right.
So
Right.
there is something to be said about, coffee stimulating your blood and your mind a little bit. But if that also is giving you a headache or an upset stomach because of the toxins in it or because of the high acidity,
Yeah.
then you're going to ignore those benefits and you're just, I mean, it's causing harm to your body instead.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that is more what the solution was intended for with Rahm roast, is to have those. Now there's a little vitamin C, there's some trace minerals in the solution, which are good for you. So, but there's minimal amounts of that when you're breaking it down into individual coffee beans to
Right.
make. So
Right.
yes, there are some small ones, but the bigger intent with Dr. Rahm was to have coffee flourish as it's supposed to, and also as it was way back in history when coffee wasn't as big of a thing and it was literally being picked from, the plants, and coffee was made that night. And you have
Yeah.
all these historical texts about how all the intellectuals were drinking coffee and have creating all these formulas and things based off, based around drinking coffee and doing a coffee hour. We want to get back to that. She wants to get back to that and let coffee shine and let the health benefits of coffee shine through, whether had a call come through real quick. Whether that is, the stimulating your blood a little bit, whether that is the memory things that it can help with. She has a whole list of it that she's a lot better on that science side of it, but she wants those benefits to shine through and basically give coffee a good name again, because it kind of is,
Well,
there's a lot.
I actually kind of got into a little bit of a conversation on the internet with a woman who is a homeopath and
Yeah.
said that coffee is a drug and it should never be used, and caffeine is evil, and I was like, okay, whatever, bye. But I do feel like a small amount of coffee can really be beneficial
Yeah.
when again you're avoiding all of the molds and the chemicals. And is there a way to extract more benefits from coffee depending on how you brew it? Is it all
So
pretty much the same?
it is all pretty much the same. There are ways that you can brew coffee wrong that might raise the acidity of your. So let's say we already have a lower acidity coffee. There's still a range based off of your brewing method of how the acidity will come out depending on the brewing method. So a lot of times if you use too much heat, then it can raise the acidity a little bit. So like some people have to do cold brew because that might lower the acidity a little bit,
Yeah,
even within that range.
yeah.
So basically we lowered the range of acidity, but even in that range, you can kind of have different areas. It was intended to be made with pour over.
Okay,
That is how the roaster first did it, I guess you could
okay,
say. Now, with coffee, there's never a one way is the only way it works. So
right.
I make mine in French press a lot because I like the French press. And
I
so
do
you
too.
can adjust it to how you drink coffee. I would say the key thing is to make sure you're being smart about how you're doing it, and not using water that might be too hot or anything like that. Use kind of staying within the guidelines of time. I don't feel like this has to be said, but we've had some issues with this. Also, you don't reuse grinds. So
Right.
if you like make a French press, you can't wait 2 days and then use the same grinds to make a French press again, because you're gonna lose a lot of, or you're creating an environment the first time you use the grinds that might spark the growth of mold and other things.
Absolutely.
Also, you're not going to get as much flavor from it.
Well,
Um,
and the flavor you get is going to be really bitter because it's been
yeah,
probably been exposed to air. And not
yeah,
only are you inviting in all of the fungus in the air to settle into your coffee, but it's going to be super bitter. Why would you do
exactly.
that?
That is
Yeah.
true. We've had a couple complaints about that, and then once I've talked with people, it's usually because they're reusing grinds, and
I've
you're allowed to
never
do
heard
what
of
you
that.
want,
Okay.
but I would recommend against that. But the key and the truth is, and Christina is very aware of this, and Clayton is as well. The products, especially that Root have, everyone's not going to do everything. There's always
Yeah.
going to be people, and there's some religions out there that don't drink coffee. And
Yeah.
Root and Rahm Roast is not here to say you have to do this
Yeah.
to be the healthiest human being. But the
Yeah.
approach is, if you're going to drink coffee and if you're going to drink it responsibly, then this is really the coffee you should be using. If you want to
Yeah.
do it in a healthier way, and I'm sure that there's going to be other coffees that come out that are and I've seen a couple that are focusing on getting rid of mold in their coffee, and that's
Yeah.
great. I mean, the more
Yeah.
healthy stuff out there, the better for the world.
Yeah.
But they just want to, and I as well want to give people the opportunity of, if you're drinking coffee, well then drink it in a healthy, responsible way, and Rom roast can help with that, because it's going to
Yeah.
give you. That doesn't mean you should go drink 8 cups of coffee a day. If you're
Right.
doing that with Rom roast, you're going to have some side effects from that, and anyone that wants to kind of talk about that, feel free to reach out. But you still need to do it in a responsible, smart way. But would you rather have a coffee, if you're going to drink a cup of coffee no matter what, would you rather have one that has molds, herbicides, pesticides still on it, or would you rather drink one that you know is clean, doesn't upset your stomach, and has a smoother taste?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it's
Especially if you add the give me back my youth. I mean, you talked about drinking 8 cups a day, and my immediate thought is you are going to destroy your digestive system at minimum, even
uh,
if you have
back my
collagen
youth
and
in it.
colostrum
Yeah,
on board.
yeah. And I will say this actually might be the first product before I even worked at Root. This was the first one that my mom was really able to have me buy in on, because as an athlete, I was already taking collagen and
Okay.
I had kind of started learning what colostrum was. And I have bad joints. My knees are horrible from rugby. So this like saved my knees. I love giving
Nice.
back my, and I know a lot of people use it for skin and hair and digestive
Yeah.
system and having a healthy stomach. I use it for my joints though, and it has saved my knees a ton. But I will say, Give Me Back My Youth is it pairs so well with Rahm roast, especially if you're using creamer, or I use it to make my lattes. So I use
Yeah.
milk, I throw in some Give Me Back My Youth in it, and it adds a slight hint of vanilla. It's not the like artificial taste that you get from
No.
artificial vanilla sweetener that I don't like. But I will froth that together. So I'll have the milk, I'll have the Give Me Back My Youth, I froth it, and then I pour it into my Rahm roast, and I'll have a morning latte. That's like my go-to morning routine.
Yeah.
Um, that's where I take my 5 minutes and get my quiet time. But
Yeah.
it pairs so well with it, and it adds well to the flavor. I will say, you need to froth it in it. You need to have some
Yeah.
sort of froth. Some
Yeah.
people will just throw in the Give Me Back My Youth to the coffee, and it gets clumpy. You have to mix it. So that
Well,
is just like,
anytime you add a powder to a liquid, you gotta mix it. I'm
thank you.
sorry about the lumps, but you gotta mix it. If
I
you've
know.
done any baking in your life, you gotta mix liquid and solid.
Yeah. Look, I baking with my grandma, I was spoiled, I guess, because I had learned that from that. But I've become aware of how many people don't know that, just because especially guys, because we usually don't bake as much. So I've had to explain that to a lot of people. But um, no, it goes great with it. And I'm hoping moving forward that we might potentially do something where these two are sold together. We'll see how that comes. But I think the changes to the Rahm roast that we're making, where it's going to be fair trade this next batch we're doing, and it's going to have resealable bags. And then maybe doing a pack down the line where we kind of pair these two together for those that are more into mixing them. I think that's some exciting news for kind of the Rahm roast brand, is one, being able to pair these two together very nicely, and then just continuing to make Rahm roast a little better. It's been great actually, because sometimes people can be a little rude about it, but normally the feedback we've got is very helpful, and we're not able to implement everything.
Right.
But one of them was that our community would like a bag that's resealable, because not everyone has a glass
Yeah.
airtight container like I did, and I didn't think about it. And that was a great idea, and we should have thought about it the first
Yeah.
time. But
Yeah.
now we get to grow from that, and it's great hearing that feedback from people in a kind way. Please be kind to give me
Well, we
feedback.
can't think
But
of everything all the time, right? So
no,
feedback can be really
yeah,
beneficial.
and
So I'm
it's
thinking probably you wouldn't be able to do this for this year, but next year, maybe at Christmas time, you could do a small bag of Rom roast and a Give Me Back My Youth gift pack to give
yeah.
for Christmas gifts.
I think that would be a good idea. I do think that is on the horizon, because I think it's a great gift, but it's also
It's a
in the
great
cold.
gift.
Oh yeah, but in the cold
Yeah.
season too, like that's when you want coffee. It's not as great in
Yes.
the summer, but it starts getting
Yeah.
a little cold, and that's the perfect time to have a nice, chat by a fireplace with a cup of coffee or make a
Yep.
latte.
Yeah.
So I think that's on the horizon. I that has been one of the other ideas that's kind of been pitched to us, and in a company. I'm with Rom Roast, but there's so many other products going on that we have to give people priorities. But I do think, as kind of the Rahm roast side, that's the next change we would like to make with it, is to really pair these two together in a package so people can have that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be great. Earlier, when we started talking about the coffee, you said, I'll get to that in a minute. And I'm sorry, but I don't remember what that was. Was it something about the cup score or how coffee might be graded?
So I think it might have been the cup score. It might have, oh, what was it? I think it was because it was talking about how people brew coffee and I kind of talked about this. There are videos out there that you should watch, but there are proper ways to brew it. And I think sometimes people mess up the
Yeah.
flavor slightly. So if you do a French press and if you know it, you know there's usually a certain time, but if you leave something in a French press for 30 minutes, it changes
Yeah,
the flavor. Um,
absolutely.
I think a lot of people don't fully know that, which we're working on kind of getting some content out there. We actually have a video that's like the proper way to do a pour over. Maybe we should do
Yeah.
that for press now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
But the cup score, and that's it's how the coffee is originated, how the coffee is roasted, how it is treated, how it's stored, the flavor behind it, how it's brewed. All that goes into a cup score. And if you're over an 80, you're considered a specialty coffee, which is
Okay.
high. Like that's good. I mean, that's
Okay.
what you, and so we have an 84 right now. I assume that will go up when we get fair trade certified.
Okay.
Because fair trade certified is part of how the coffee's originated. So that's going to
Yeah.
change the score further.
Okay.
But when you start changing aspects of that, and obviously you can't change the origination or the roasting or the storage of it, that's on us, but
Yeah.
customers can change how they brew it. And that slightly sometimes changes the flavor or that smoothness that you talk about, which is
Yeah.
what the intent was. And since you're getting that smoothness, that probably means you're brewing it the right way. But some people miss out on that smoothness, and it's
Mhm.
usually due to two issues: is either the bag was opened and not used for a while, or it's being brewed in a not intended way,
Mhm.
which isn't bad. You're not going to seriously hurt yourself if you do it that way, but it is changing how the coffee was intended, and it's slightly going to change that acidity or slightly change that taste. And the most common one is people doing French press and leaving it in the French press for an extended amount of time, which is going to add a darker taste
Mhm.
and add some potential bitterness and acidity to it.
I
Because
agree.
yeah, so
We
that was
have
yeah,
we have both Mr. Coffee,
yeah, yeah.
super fancy $30 Mr. Coffee that
Uh-huh.
you just put the water in and the go and you press go.
That's it for
And
you.
that one
Yeah,
it is not as smooth. It is a little
yeah,
more bitter.
yeah,
And when I do it in a French press, it's if I watch the water temperature, like sometimes the water boils and I gotta wait a minute. But
yeah,
if the water temperature isn't too hot, it's literally the perfect cup. It's
yeah.
pretty awesome.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun too. I've basically got to relearn coffee as we've brought Rom roast and coffee to honestly some people that aren't coffee people. And it's
Yeah.
been great listening to questions and hearing what they don't know, because I've got to relearn these things that I've been doing for years but haven't really thought about. So
Yeah.
it was great having to research how to do the perfect pour over, because
Hmm.
I have just been doing my pour overs the same way for 5 years, and I haven't really gone back to the basics and learned like, well, what does make a perfect one?
Yeah.
Um, and it's fun doing things like this, explaining a cup score. That's fun.
Yeah.
Explaining there's different ways to brew stuff. That's a lot of fun. Or explaining the difference between different roast styles. Um, I would say for anybody that is interested, that might be
Hmm.
a 2024 or beginning of 2025 thing, is bringing different roast as well. But we're looking into that, so we'll see how long that takes. But
And
right now
maybe
we
a
do.
dark roast for the Europeans.
Well,
I do like a dark roast. So in
yeah,
my
and that
opinion, this is more of a medium roast,
it
but
is. Yes.
I'm totally fine with it. But there
Yeah.
is a difference between how you roast it. I've tried
Yeah.
3 and all 3 are different.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
been a lot of fun just learning about that and getting to share that with people. And it's been a lot of fun too to, you know, make changes based off what people are the feedback, because no matter what you do, there's always some ways to grow it. And
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. So, just this month, for the month of November, there is a little bit of an opportunity to get some rum roast, right?
Yes, there is. And there is multiple sides to this. One is that we wanted to give people a chance to try a Rahm roast that normally don't. Um, we've made some adjustments, but originally the price point was only sold for 3, and it was a little expensive, and we were aware of that. So we've done a single bag now, which has allowed more people to buy it, which we love. But we want to give another chance. And the second part is we have a lot of Root Prime Root Prime subscription members or RPS members, and we really wanted to give an opportunity to say thank you to them, because in a lot of ways, RPS members, tied with ambassadors, keep our route going, because they're the loyal customers that are coming back every month and getting something. And we do a lot of deals for them. We'll do like 15% off when we launch new products, but we wanted to do something extra, especially in the Thanksgiving season where you're being thankful. There's Giving Tuesday coming up. So we wanted to give something back to the community. So any new or existing RPS member that has an order during November that is $125 or higher will get a free bag of coffee just immediately. And that is kind of our thank you to the community as we're getting into this holiday season, and just a way to, show our community, especially during a time that is rough for a lot of people. And there's a lot going on in the world, to show that, hey, good things can still happen. We're thankful for you. This year is, solid and something for you to fall back on. And we want you all to feel cared for in a way. So we're excited to give a bag of coffee to everybody, and you can try it yourself or give it to somebody else. Bring it to your family gathering if you're doing anything for the kind of Thanksgiving season, and give them the gift of coffee. But it's a gift from kind of the HQ out to our community.
And I love that. So thank you, HQ. Very grateful for that, because I am going to give a lot of coffee this year. I literally everybody I know loves coffee, so why not, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing that I was thinking of when I was staring at your cup was you guys did launch some swag, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I would love some Rum Roast swag.
Well, that's not a bad idea, actually.
It's a great idea, because why
idea.
not raise some awareness for Rum Roast?
That I might have to pitch that to our marketing team next. That might be the next thing. I would love, look, when we made these coffee mugs, this was a big discussion. I have my coffee mug logos here because when I drink it, but Clayton loves the idea of being able to cheers. Yes. And you cheers, or when he does his calls, he loves being able to show the logo. Yeah. And I never thought of that. It's a good thought. Maybe we'll keep these, and then maybe we'll have Rahm roast coffee mugs or something that has it over here. And
I mean, literally every coffee shop you go to, you can buy their shirt.
I know.
I want to wear a Rahm roast shirt.
Yeah. Look, I'm all about it. Clayton, for my birthday last year, gave me a cornhole board that has the Rahm roast logo on it, and that was great. Which that would be hard to mass produce, but I do think we need some Rahm roast swag out there.
Absolutely. And swag is easy. I mean, you already got the logos, you already got the supplier.
Yeah, it just takes the purchasing of it. So that's going to be my task list for our marketing team, is to kind of find our best options to do something for that with Rahm roast. Absolutely.
Yep. I need a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. It's cold here.
This winter season, it's sweatshirt season, and what's better than a coffee sweatshirt and some coffee to get you in the mood for it.
A couple of days ago, a a city not very far from where we live, set a record for 4.5 inches of snow.
Where I need to check in with this friend, but he moved somewhere and they got like 5 inches of snow. And I know
On
he had,
Halloween.
yeah, I wonder if it was kind
Was he
of
in
around.
Wisconsin or Minnesota, maybe?
It's somewhere like that, but I know he had just moved there and he was like, if this is how winter's gonna be, then this is gonna be, yeah, because Tennessee is not like that. So if you're moving up there from Tennessee, he's gonna be in for a shock, I think. So we'll
I
hopefully,
was in a shock. So I was in Tennessee last March for one of the
yeah,
health freedom expos
yeah,
that your mom spoke at. I think it
yeah,
was the first one that she spoke at. And I woke up that morning to 21 degrees and snow
yeah,
in Tennessee, not
yeah.
here. It's like
No,
I came to
I
Tennessee for the warm.
get away and then we always do it at weird times too. We'll get no snow for all of January and February, and then like March comes around, everyone's ready for spring, and that's when it snows. And
Boom.
we're done with winter at that point. Like we're past we want the flowers and the heat, and but no, that's not how Tennessee does it.
So I will include a link where people can get some Rom roast.
Yeah,
They can enroll in RPS. And I really feel like RPS is so misunderstood. It's got so many benefits. There's
yeah,
literally no downfall. There's no
no,
strings attached. And one of the reasons why I love Root is that there's no funky rules.
no,
I've been in a lot of other companies and there's so many rules for subscriptions and it's jumping through so many hoops if for some reason you need to pause it or cancel it. And Root just wants people to heal and wants
yeah.
people to succeed and do well and be better and do better. And RPS is grossly misunderstood and underrated. So
I You don't have to pay for it. All you're
no,
doing is saying you're going to be buying every month.
yeah,
It's not like some other bigger name groups out there that again you have to pay for. You get
yep.
2 free shippings of other products during that month if you want it. You get plenty of, once you're in it for 4 months, you start getting coupons to save the
Nobody
price.
does that.
And
Nobody says, "Oh,
but
here's $50. Go spend it
I
somewhere."
I was mad at myself because I have most of HQ has an RPS, and I
Yeah.
looked at my RPS coupons and I had 5 of them saved up because I just forgot it was there. And I was mad at myself. I was like, I tell people all the time to use these, and I forgot
Yeah.
to use them myself.
Yeah.
Um, but also, you usually, and this is going to be a focus for us as we're moving on. We had done this a lot in 2022. We want to get back to it, is to continue doing more things like having added products or like having giveaways for RPS.
Yeah.
Because the truth is we want RPS to be a community like we were talking about, which is why we do RPS calls. It's why we
Yeah.
let them have these other avenues to us, because that's really our community. That, and
Yeah.
all of Root is our community and our ambassadors are our community, but RPS in itself is another community, and it's another way for us to kind of, with all these people around the world, bring them together a little bit and have them share something or have a chance to get together. So
I agree. And as cheesy as it sounds, when I became a member of this community, I was really, checking it out and like,
yeah,
what is going on here? This is
yeah,
different. This is different than anything I've ever been involved in before. Because I'll be honest, the other stuff that I've been involved in is MLM, and
yeah,
it's got that vibe. And
yeah,
this was like, no. And honestly, it's Clayton. Here's this guy. My first introduction to Clayton was this guy in a black t-shirt at a chalkboard,
uh-huh,
literally explaining all of the things that I had been running around in my brain for a couple of decades. And
yeah,
I was just so taken aback, like who
yeah.
is this guy? What is
And
going on here?
he's the owner, and he talks to everybody. And I've never seen anything like it.
How
And
about
I've never seen an owner of a company be so excited to talk to customers and
yeah,
ambassadors, just customers. I've never seen someone so excited to be
never.
giving money to people or to give them. He just is so involved with everything. It is I've never seen the likes of it, and he gets so excited by it. It doesn't bother him. He actually created Root
Thrives
and
on it.
yeah, to have a community like that. It's what his goal is to have this thing where it is all one big community, and
Yeah.
he is just part of it. And
Yeah.
it is it shocks us sometimes, and it honestly creates sometimes headaches for
Yep.
headquarters
Yep.
because he overextends so much, or is talking with so many people. But it also is what makes Root and Clayton who they are. So
Yeah.
it's important at the end of the day that he is that way.
And it makes all the difference because, in the past, in other companies that I've been with, a lot of their presentations are so cringy,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're so scripted, and they're so inauthentic that, here comes Clayton. Yeah, he's a little off the rails.
Huh?
He is not in the box,
No.
and he is probably the most authentic person I've met in a long time. And
Yeah.
then here's Dr. Rahm. When do you ever meet the owner, who
Yeah.
is so down to earth and relatable and authentic? And then here's the scientist behind all of these products. Not only do you know who she is, but she talks to you,
She'll answer questions, and she'll,
and
yeah.
they literally give you for free PhD and MD level information and presentations and scientific knowledge for free. It's like I'm
Yeah.
earning a free education through
Yeah.
what Dr. Dory has done. I really miss Dr. Dory, by the way. The presentations that she has put
Yeah.
together for Tuesdays with
Yeah.
Clayton were amazing. I was
Yeah.
just shocked. And then, with Root University and the ambassador calls and all of this, that they are front and center for free. I
Yeah.
was like, who are these people? What is happening
Yeah.
here? It sounds so cheesy, but I'm so grateful to be, not only be able to heal for me, for
Yeah.
myself and for my family. And my husband is a professional skeptic, and he is all about clean slate. Holy cow. He sells it. He sells it
Yeah.
himself. But to, a lot of my background was in the medical field, both in medicine, but also at a psychiatric hospital. So
Okay.
I've kind of got an interesting blend of allopathic medicine and
Yeah.
holistic medicine. And to see these, Dr. Dory, Dr. Tina, Dr. Keshkesh, and Dr. Ram, I was like, what is happening here?
No.
This has never been done. And for the people who don't get it, I'm just like, I don't know what else you could ask for. Like,
Yeah.
how can you doubt this? How can you not see what's going on here? I think we've grown a little jaded as a society, and we still doubt the science that is presented right in your face. It's handed
Yeah.
to you for free, and people are still like, well,
Yeah, it almost seems too good to be true to have all this access to the owner and to the scientist. So then people are thrown off by it. And I think it's also strange when it kind of depends who you talk to, but especially when you talk to my mom, to Dr. Rahm, to not really have promises made that are going to
yeah,
be like, hey, this is going to fix everything,
yeah,
because that's what people are used to. But she just says,
yep,
like, hey, if you're struggling with this, then like this one product might be good for you. And
try it.
look at all the benefits. Try it. Look at, like, this is all natural. I am telling you what's in it. You don't have to guess. She will
Yep,
tell you. She has videos over every product that tell you exactly what's in it. So you're
yep,
not guessing. And she says, here are all the ways that this could help you. The decision's up to you now.
yeah,
And she would love again, her goal is to help as many people as possible at the end of the day. And you can't force somebody to get help. They have to choose it. And she's very aware of that. And she creates all the ways possible to frame it in a way where they can choose it. But at the end of the day, it is up to them. But I think people sometimes want to hear, like, this will fix everything.
yeah.
And it's just, that's not, or like,
That's
you
not how it
have,
works.
yeah. And that was one of the frustrations with the coffee too, is people wanted us to say, like, you have to drink this coffee to be healthy. And that's not true. It is the
Yeah.
way of like, for coffee drinkers, drink this. Or for,
Yeah.
you know, the skin line, for people who want Reno, you don't have to do it. But if you're interested in using, you know, face moisturizer and that is what you're interested in, then like, here is a product for you. I'm gonna be honest, I don't use it. I've used it twice when I've got sunburns, but I don't use face moisturizer. So it's not
Yeah.
my thing. But the reality is that there's something for almost everybody at this
Yeah.
point. And it's just going to
Yeah.
continue to
To
work that way.
grow.
Yeah.
Because I mean, she's got like a whole list of formulas that she would
Yeah.
love
It's
to launch overnight, but that's just not how it works.
for us here to create all the marketing and the inventory for it. But it is, she does have all these things that, you know, that will come at some point. And
Yeah.
it's just for people to, do we think that everyone should detox their body? Yes. I mean, that's true, but you can't make them do it. And
Right.
it just is. But we're going to tell you what this is, and we're going to, you know, give you the best information possible to let you make that choice. And then it's up to the person.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Thank you so much for your time today.
No problem.
I've
Thank you
learned
for
so
having
much.
me. Yeah. Well, and again, I love the idea of this. And we hadn't talked about this until we were on this actually, but just the idea of a coffee hour, having coffee with people, I love it. So it's great to see that other people you know, feel the same way about sharing a cup of coffee.
Absolutely. Open invitation to come and have coffee talks anytime. If you've got updates, let me know. We'll do this again.
Oh yeah, I will keep that in mind, because you know, in 6 months maybe we'll have some updates for everybody to share out there about what's next.
Yeah, and if you have different roasts, we'll tell everybody about that. And
Yeah.
when the swag comes up, we'll tell
What
everybody
about
about
that?
that.
Yes, exactly. That sounds like a plan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If people have questions, do you have a link that you can share with me, and then I'll post with this video where they can find out more?
Yeah.
Maybe we can link them to the pour over video or anything else that you think would be helpful.
Yeah, I will. I'll give a couple of links so that, you know, any coffee questions where they can go for that, and then for you know, I'll put a couple of the videos too that I think will be helpful.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Lori.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.